Paging Dr. Teal is a podcast dedicated to highlighting the importance of a holistic approach to mental health, which emphasizes the connection between the mind, body, and spirit. The goal of holistic wellness is to achieve maximum well-being where all domains are functioning at their best. When it comes to holistic health, we're looking beyond the physical body and addressing physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and intellectual health collectively. I'm Dr. Teal, your psychologist bestie and host of Paging Dr. Teal. Join me on a highly relatable journey of discovery, holistic wellness, and being happier, healthier, and whole. With holistic wellness, people accept responsibility for their own level of well-being, and everyday choices are used to take charge of one's own health. Health is wealth, so take care of yourself, friends. Paging Dr. Teal is currently available on Anchor, Apple, or Spotify. But regardless as to how you listen to the podcast, please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and write us a review. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Paging Dr. Teal, and visit us on the web at www.pagingdrteal.com. And if you have a question or situation you want to receive some guidance on, send them to pagingdrteal@gmail.com. I'm here for you, so I want to hear from you, friend. Money looks better in the bank than in your closet, friend. So start your journey to financial wellness today with Harvest Time Financial. Harvest Time Financial can help grow your credit score by removing collections, medical bills, charge-offs, late payments, repossessions, and bankruptcy. Harvest Time Financial also offers one-on-one financial coaching, legacy and income protection, and notary services. Gain control of your money and jumpstart your financial wellness with Harvest Time Financial. Schedule a free consultation. Yes, free 99. Why haven't you gotten your consultation yet, friend? Schedule your free consultation now at harvesttimefinancial@gmail.com, and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Harvest Time Financial. Again, that's harvesttimefinancial@gmail.com for your free consultation. And be sure to follow them on Instagram at Harvest Time Financial. And make sure you tell them that Dr. Teal sent you, friend. You're welcome. Hey, friend. So, today we're going to do something different. We are going to pause our series on thinking errors, master your mind, change your life. And I want to share with you, friends, an interview featuring myself on the About That Wallet podcast. Because, you know, health is wealth, so we take care of ourselves. And that includes financial health. But in this particular episode of the podcast, About That Wallet, we're not necessarily talking about money. We're talking about communication. And you know, communication is my thing. And you and I, friend, we've already talked about communication. And I know by now you've listened to the series. So this would be like the refresher, the enrichment course, the pay-per-view. But for you, friend, it's free. Because we're friends. And that's what friends are for. And so I'm not going to say too much about it. It's a pretty long episode. I'm not going to lie to you. So if you're cleaning up your house or you've got something to do and you need something to listen to in the background, you know, pop me in the background and I'm going to hold you down while you're cleaning up your house, and also hit you with a variety of different gems, some of my therapeutic experience in navigating communication situations with clients, as well as just giving you all of this life that I give you, friend. Speaking of giving life, you know what gives me life? What gives me life is you, friend. Especially our international friends that are checking in. Shout out to you, friend, in Ireland, Germany, Spain, Canada, Pakistan, and Philippines. Thank you so much, our international friends, for listening and supporting the Paging Dr. Teal podcast. I love you from afar. I hope that you're taking care of yourself drinking your water, minding your business, and living your best life. And speaking of living your best life, quick little update, because I said I was going to be accountable about my wellness journey. So here I am checking in with you, friends. So before I said I lost 17 pounds as a result of being in this accountability group, which I discuss in more depth in the Accountability Revisited episode. So if you want to hear more about that, you'll have to listen to that episode. Not going to get into it now, but in that episode, I revealed that I was a part of a group of wonderful ladies, and we all have these fitness and wellness goals, and we support each other from afar. They're from like all over the world. I'm the only one like deep in the South. They're out in the West Coast and all over. But the point is, we support each other in our fitness and wellness goals. And as a result of that, I've lost 17 pounds. And then so I weighed in this morning. We weigh in on Mondays, and I lost another 5 pounds. Ow, doc about to be snatched. Yes. So I'm super excited about sharing my wellness journey with you guys and holding myself accountable by checking in and letting you know what's up. And maybe you have a goal. Maybe there's something that you want to be better at. Like maybe we should start an accountability group. I don't know. But if you think that's a good idea, I want to hear from you, friend. Send me an email if you might be interested in being part of a Paging Dr. Teal accountability group. Maybe you have a new idea. Maybe you have a new goal. Maybe you want to lose weight. Maybe you want to be a better communicator, whatever the case may be. Hit me up, let me know. And if I get enough response, hey, we'll start our own accountability group and leave out of 2020 stronger than a coronavirus. All right, so let's get into this interview. I hope you enjoy it, and check back in next week where we will get back to our regular Paging Dr. Teal shenanigans. And oftentimes people just want to be heard. People really want to be heard and understood. And to understand someone, you have to hear them first.
Welcome to the About That Wallet podcast, show number 6, where I interview Dr. Miranda Teal from Paging Dr. Teal and get her story about communications, some communication strategies, and her expectations for the future of communications with each other. Welcome to the About That Wallet podcast, where I, your host Anthony Weaver, will provide quick history, actionable strategies, and futuristic ideas surrounding the cash flow mindset. So please join me in the quest to getting to know about that wallet. So today we have a psychologist by the name of Dr. Teal. How you doing, Dr. Teal?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So my name is Miranda Teal, Dr. Teal for short by professional trade. And I am a psychologist currently employed by the federal government. I have over 7 years of experience working with the entire lifespan spectrum. That means children, adolescents, their families. I've worked with couples. Couples happen to be my least favorite due to the relational implications of that, but that's something that we'll get into, within the context of this conversation. But I have over 7 years of experience, and unfortunately, that still makes me an early career psychologist. So I'm just getting started. I'm a baby in the psychology game, so to say, but I'm just getting started. Very excited about just the vastness of the field of psychology and being able to share my expertise with others and breaking down psychology in a way that's practical and relatable, as opposed to this cryptic, soft science of sorts.
So today I invited you on because I really wanted to share with my audience the importance of communications. And I've noticed on your podcast that you've went through about 4 episodes to talk about communication. So can you kind of share with my audience a little bit about that?
This is random but relevant, and that's something that I say on my show a lot because I feel like stories really highlight different experiences in a practical way. My series was birthed from some of my own real life experiences. A young man that I was dating at the time, he and I both had very different communication styles, and that led to a lot of conflict in our relationship. And so I wanted to take what I learned from my experience with him, along with some of the reading and research that I did on communication, and just be able to share that with others, because I found that in the beginning, I blamed him for a lot of our conflicts and issues, but I later realized that I played a huge role, ironically, in our conflict and disagreement. And so the series essentially breaks down the different communication styles. So passive style of communication, where you kind of just concede to the needs of others and put your needs on the back burner. There's a passive aggressive communication style. And in short, people that are passive aggressive are really petty. They're like a nice nasty. They say one thing and mean another, and you're not kind of sure where they are with things because their actions are very different from their words. And then you have your aggressive communicators. These are your jerks and your type A personality individuals. And then lastly, you have the more preferred style of communication, which is assertive. And assertive communicators have the ability to communicate empathetically and tactfully, but also put their needs first in a way that everybody wins. And so with my experience with him and the reading that I did, I set out on a quest to just become a better communicator, because unfortunately, we live in our own worlds and our own minds, and reality is highly perception based. And so what you're experiencing and what I'm experiencing are two totally different things based off our experience. And I feel like communication is that bridge that we build in the middle to merge our world. So that's something that I wanted to share, with my audience, and thought that it would be helpful given my experience. I think one of the biggest myths around communication is that it's purely based in the words that we say. And because communication it's a multi-dimensional process. It's bidirectional, and every piece of information that's being conveyed, whether it's through your tone, your pitch, your body language, all of those things mean something and align in some way with the message that you're trying to convey. And I think oftentimes people get too caught up in only the words and miss the bigger picture. So I want to say that's one of the most biggest misconceptions, that communication is just about what comes out of your mouth. No, it's about everything that you are communicating with your entire being when you're engaging with somebody. So to say nice words and to have a frown on your face, that creates conflict, because it's like, what do you really mean? You're saying these nice things to me, but your body language is not matching with that. And I think that's what creates miscommunication, inconsistency between what we're saying and how we're conveying that. It has to be consistent so that the person can begin to fully understand the message that you're trying to convey. So I think that's one of the biggest myths.
Yeah, because when you're mentioning that, it brought up the notion of please to me. Like when somebody was like, oh yeah, can you take the dishes out, please? Or can you please sweep the floor? Like, is it really meant to be in a harsh way, or did they really mean it in a pleasant way? Versus, like how you said, the words and how they say it. And that's one of the things that came to mind, that please is used wrongfully in most communication.
Yeah, I think we've gotten lazy because of social media and texting. And so I think, and then we don't read anymore. So because we're not putting more time and energy into our intellect, unfortunately, and because technology has made us lazy, I feel like some people don't even fully understand the words that they're using, and they use them incorrectly, and they're saying one thing but they mean something else because they don't know what that word means. To say please when you're giving a command, it sends a confusing signal because you're not asking me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me to do this. So it's either you're going to tell me to do this or you're going to ask. It's either a command or a request. And I think that takes a certain level of accountability and vulnerability to make sure that your words match the meaning that you're trying to convey.
I really trying to hone in on this because though my podcast is mostly focused on cash flow strategies, but I really think that having this notion of communication is really key. So that brings us to like the next segment that I want to talk about, which is strategies on being a better communicator. Because obviously we all struggle in that area.
Yes.
So what strategies in your years of experience have been that you've seen or recommended to people that were beneficial that you've seen?
So some that come to mind, number one is keep it short. We often are verbose in nature, and a lot of what you're trying to convey gets lost in these flowery words and trying to get your thoughts together. So I think we have to be more mindful of our words and keep it short, because if you can concisely convey whatever it is whatever idea that you're trying to express to your partner, loved one, coworker, whatever the case may be, you're more likely to get the desired result. Because you tell someone something, if they don't understand what you're saying, then that leaves them to figure it out, add their own flavor to it. But if you just give it to them straight forward and to the point, then we can circumvent a lot of conflict and confusion. Number two, most important, more than being clear and concise and communicating your message, I think oftentimes we fail to really listen. So in communication, in the same way that we have to be clear in what we're saying, we also have to stop and be capable of hearing the other person, and not hearing them with the intent to respond, but hearing them with the intent to really understand and consider their perspective outside of our perspective. Because like I said before, communication is a portal into the world of somebody else. And how are we to really fully understand their experience if we're in our own head when we're talking and trying to figure out what we're going to say? We're thinking about the thing that they said last week that pissed us off. So we're going to throw that in their face at any given moment because we got this great argument together. That creates conflict. That conveys a lack of empathy. And acting in that way could cause more conflict and problems in your relationship. So we have to listen more than we speak as well.
Yeah, I think there was a phrase where they say God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen more and speak less.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you did mention that. I was steal that quote for later.
You're welcome.
So, with that piece of listening, and I usually try to do more active listening, when it comes to, because I did a segment just a few episodes ago talking about getting financially naked. And in that sense, it's you with your partner, actually. So with that, you get to actually take time to listen and understand and see where that person is at without that judgment or the fear of being judged. And I think that comes with the experience that people have. Am I on the right path here?
Yes, absolutely. I think experience is our best teacher. We weren't taught how to communicate in school. Just imagine how great the world would be if we were taught the things that we actually needed to know: budgeting, communication, conflict resolution, emotion regulation, and things like that. So I think with communication, we learn from experience, and our first teachers are our parents. And a lot of times people make the excuse, well, this is just how I am, or this is how I was raised. That's fine and dandy. But after 18, it's time to be accountable and responsible and do things differently so that you can see a different result. And I think our experiences and our willingness to participate in vulnerable experiences, especially, help us to really hone in on our communication skills and develop a greater capacity to really convey how we feel in a non-judgmental way, but also receive and hear and be active and be present and create a safe space for someone to do the same with us. Figuratively speaking, creating a safe space in your relationship with someone means that you create boundaries that allow for real and true intimacy to flourish. And that looks different with everyone depending on their experience and where they are in their healing. So specifically by that, I mean, let me think of a past experience. So again, like I said before, doing couples therapy is like herding goats. I would rather get a family. I'd rather get a family of like 6 in front of me than a man and a wife, because when a man and a woman come into a room, they bring all of their experiences, all of their hurts with them. And that's a lot to have to process and pick apart. And so in creating an emotional safe space therapeutically, in my experience, what I've done is give each individual the opportunity to speak without any interruption. That means the other person, you have to zip it, lock it, put it in your pocket, keep it cute. You better not show any negative body language. You sit, you're present, and you hear them. You give them eye contact. You convey empathy and respect in the same way that you would want that. So you sit and you hear them and you listen. And then we pick apart elements of what was said. So say the wife says something. So how did that make you feel? Or what did you mean by that? We really get to the root of the problem and ask clarifying questions. Instead of making assumptions and pointing fingers and bringing up old stuff, you create a space where you can ask these questions that matter to make sure that you fully have an understanding. And after we've asked all these clarifying questions to make sure that we're understanding this concept, this problem, if you will, in the way that you're trying to convey it, then the other partner repeats back to them what they understood that to be and the emotion involved in it. And oftentimes people just want to be heard. People really want to be heard and understood. And to understand someone, you have to hear them. You have to have a willingness to hear them. And that means you shut up. You shut up internally. You shut up physically. You sit and you hold space for your partner. And I think that's the most basic way to communicate love and respect. And with that love and respect, you're able to deepen that level of intimacy. And then after that conversation, I sit with them and we try to develop some ground rules around conflict. So if there's a conflict, we make it a point not to go to bed before we talk about it. And in relationships, oftentimes there's a person that has to talk about everything right now because it's going to burn them up on the inside. And then there's the other person that needs space. So the compromise with that is if there's a burning issue, we set a deadline for when we're going to talk about it, because that gives the person that's a little bit more emotionally distant space to get their thoughts and their mind together. And then that gives that other person that's a firecracker and needs to talk about it, they know when they're going to talk about it. So it's not just left in limbo. It's about creating a space to better connect. And you can only do that with communication and asking questions and listening and being receptive to what you're hearing and not just responding.
Okay, so with all that, because I can already see like how, say if you're already on one stance and you actually say, no, I don't want to go to so and so's party, and your significant other is like, well, we got to go to this party, and you just had that firm stance, like you don't want to. And even though you guys talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
but is it ever a point to just agree to disagree without having those additional feelings because of that communication, is to kind of understand, like, all right, maybe she don't want to go or be around these people or just want to stay home today, and you can go out and do whatever you want to do. But it's it's almost like that trust, like it has to be built up in that communication space. But what can, I guess, be done between the couple to actually make sure that that communication just stay in that particular realm versus it blowing up later on?
I think with that, it does. I'm trying to get my thoughts together because we all deal with those type of situations where we feel strongly about something and the other person is gridlocked in how they feel. So it's like we're two bulls just locked in our positions and about to get this disaster going. I think it depends. I think part of it is choosing your battles. Everything doesn't require a lengthy discussion. And I think with experience as a couple, you figure out, what are the big things and what are the small things? What am I willing to concede on? What do I stand firmly on? And I think it's a matter of what are your values? And I think we have to be honest about our individual values, and through the context of our relationships, we figure out what our values are as a couple, and things that conflict with our values are non-negotiable. But if they don't conflict with our values and it's a matter of preference, then I feel like with communication, with trust, and with communication, we should be able to safely agree to disagree. Okay, you don't want to go to that party. You need to tell me why you don't want to go to that party. And maybe it's because you're tired and you have a lot of stuff going on right now, and the people at the party, you don't really care for their energy, and you don't have it in you to fake it today. Like, I think in really just having a conversation about where you are and what the problem really is allows us to sort those things out. I don't think that there's anything too big or too small to discuss. We have to discuss it so that we can move past it. If we're not able to discuss it, I think that's what creates an issue, the things that we're not able to talk about. Because if we don't talk about that thing in the moment, your true experience, then 2 weeks later, when something similar happens again, you can roll that in there and be like, and see, remember that time I didn't want to go to that party and I went to the party with you anyways, you don't ever listen to me. And so
Exactly.
we have to be willing to really have these conversations about how we feel, what we're experiencing, and what's going on, no matter how big or small it is, because we can move past it in that way, as opposed to letting it snowball and become a bigger thing.
Right. And so that brings to the point of outgrowing someone. Like, so you've had this communication, you've been trying,
Yes.
and this other person is not listening. And now you're looking at it like, well, what else can I do? At what point do you either you bend to try to figure out how to communicate with this person, or do you just kind of give up? Like, what point have you seen, or what, I guess you could say, what is the peak that a lot of people usually just say, you know what, I'm done?
Ooh, that's a heavy one to unpack. That's something that I have been struggling with in my personal life. That is a huge issue therapeutically, with couples and families and individuals. When do we say when? When do we give up on that other person? So, personally speaking, in my personal relationships, friend, romantic, or otherwise, I really try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I really, because we're human, everybody's human. And oftentimes our reactions are not a reflection of our reactions are oftentimes reflections of what we're going on internally. So if someone responds to you rudely, it's not even about you, it's about them and what they may be experiencing. But as human beings on the other end of that, it's easy for us to take that personal and feel slighted because we're on the receiving end. But that's often a projection of some hurt, pain, or issue that they're dealing with. So with that in mind, I try to be compassionate with people in our disagreements, because I would like that same compassion when I have a day of being a not so great human. But there's a limit to that. So I can give you all this grace. I can give you all this grace. So I give you, everybody gets a warning shot. So you get a warning shot first. And then after you get a warning shot, and I've communicated to you how that interaction made me feel, and I understand that you have X, Y, and Z going on, and so I'm going to let that ride. After that, I am looking at your actions. And if your actions are still giving me the same energy of conflict, then I have to step back and believe you, because you're giving me valuable information. And so that means my boundaries change. That means if there's an issue, I'm going to move back and protect myself in a way that preserves our communication and saves face. And I'm going to, even sometimes, depending on the personal relationship, I might try to communicate and compromise with you. But if I see after all three of those steps, I'm still on the short end of the stick, then I respectfully reserve the right to pull out and take my talents elsewhere. And it's no love lost, but life is too short for us to be in conflict and not be able to talk through it and exchanging negative energy. Energy is never destroyed, it's only transferred. And we have such a limited amount of time on earth. And I don't think the best use of that time is engaging in a conflict. I want to spend more time on the solution. The problem and how we feel is not as big of an issue as how do we arrive at the solution. And so I will quickly pull back after I've tried different things, different solutions, and seeing that those things fail. And oftentimes that gets people's attention when you completely just withdraw all of your energy. But I'm like, why does it even take all of that? But for them, I think that's a level of emotional maturity on their end, because they're not seeing all the signs that I'm laying down before them.
Right. And because I can see where it seems like almost like you're giving in, but ultimately I think it's, you have to kind of give in to actually see where everybody is coming from to some degree, right?
I think it's giving in. There's such a negative connotation with that. I think I'm just allowing myself to be vulnerable and understand that this is a person with their stuff and what they've been through. And maybe today they just had a bad day. Or maybe I remind them of their aunt who they used to live with that talked down to them. Like, we never know what people are really what's really going through somebody's head. And that's why it's so important to talk. So I try not to assume. And I try to give you time and space to say what it is that's on your mind. And yeah, that is kind of, I guess, conceding. But I think of it more as a compromise, because it's a learning experience for both of us. Because whether you act in a way that's amenable to me or not, I've done my part in trying to be an effective communicator. I've given you the space to try to learn to effectively communicate. And what you do with that is on you.
That makes sense. Okay, so then I'm just thinking from a financial point of view, when people, for those of the people that combine their finances, even though they're not married, and then there's those who are married but keep their finances separate. And it's almost like a twofold type deal where communication has to be a key point inside that relationship, especially if you're not married and all your bills and everything like that are combined and you're living in the same household, and then decide to have children on top of that as well. It's almost like well, what are they doing or planning to do in that situation? I mean, I've been in that situation. So just kind of like expound on is it almost like you're lying to yourself to think that, oh yeah, we have hope at the end of the tunnel, but never have that communication or that conversation to talk about, well, what are our plans together?
Well, to
Um,
me, that sounds like blind faith. And I think that a brave and loving soul imparts in that type of journey. But I think you kind of set yourself up for failure to a certain degree if there is no plan, because what are you moving towards if there isn't a plan? How do we handle emergencies if there isn't a plan? What happens when life happens if there's
right.
no plan? And our finances determine our quality of life. So if we are building a life and intertwining our lives together and our livelihoods, we've got to have a conversation about our spending habits, an emergency fund, all those things that matter, so that when those things happen, we're not knocked on our behinds and having to scramble. It's like you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. That's one of my little Dr. Till things
It
too, by the
sure
way.
is.
But that's so important, especially, in our relationships, and especially as it relates to money, because life happens. Nobody could have predicted COVID. And now look
Right.
at us waiting on stimulus checks that may never come.
So true, so true. So that brings us to the last segment, which is the features and what's new and exciting in the art of communicating.
Hmm. That's a heavy question. That sounds like that's above my pay grade, but I'm going to take a stab at it.
Right.
I'm going to take a stab at it. That's a grand finale type question. But in terms of future developments, I hate to sound pessimistic, but I feel like because technology is becoming so advanced and so sophisticated, if we don't tap back into the basics, we run the risk of really being disconnected. Like, I was coming home yesterday, I saw this couple sitting out on their patio, and both of them are on their phones. Like, they're sitting all hugged up together, but they're both on their phones in their own
Wow.
worlds. Like, how are you spending time together but not? Like, I,
Right.
I really think we have to get back to the basics, having conversations. And even when you have friends come over after COVID is done and we can have our kickbacks safely, like, we can't be on our phones the whole time. We're coming together to come together. So I think communication has to get back to the basics so that our skills are not lost. We don't have the skills that we need to adequately communicate because we don't utilize them. We email, we text, we send quick videos, but we don't really sit down and have these intimate, in-depth, vulnerable conversations with our loved ones in a way that we can further connect and understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about it now because I'm in the tech field and mostly focus on the information security side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole notion of deep fakes, where the communication that you see can more than likely be intercepted with someone else saying the voice of you, or even using audio clips and making it into another sentence that you've never said in person. So, and that's one of the things that kind of get me like afraid of moving forward as we go through into the future
Mm-hmm.
of how can we convey our, I guess you could say, our purpose when we trying to communicate to someone and they was like, well, see here in your email or see here in this mailing
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't say that. So is there any ways around that you think we can kind of get through to communicate with someone?
Absolutely. So I get real when I email people. I'll have all these thoughts. And so I'll get everything out. I'll word vomit. Everything that I'm trying to communicate, I'll put it all in the body of the email. And depending on how I'm feeling that day, will dictate the level of editing that's involved in that. In communication, we have to stick to the facts. And if we stick to the facts, then I think that prevents us from getting put in this trick bag of, well, you said this and that seemed like that, or whatever the case may be. So stick to the facts. So you compose your email and you go back and you ask yourself, what am I trying to communicate? What do I want? What do I need from this person? So what is the problem? What do I need? What do I want? Then after you've edited and answer those questions clearly and concisely, then you look at it again and you go back and say, can I say this in an even shorter way? You want to be very, 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 very clear. You want to make sure that you're using words and language that they understand. And you want to speak when necessary. You only want to say what is necessary, because if you add all that extra, that is how someone can pull that out and throw it in your face. Stick to the facts. Keep it simple. Keep it cute.
I like it, because that's what Judge Judy always says. Facts does not have feelings.
Facts.
And I love it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, all right. So we're gonna wrap up from here. So where people can find you?
So my website is being redesigned right now, but it will be launching in the next week. So they can check me out on the web at www.pagingdrteal.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, and that's Paging Dr. Teal. Please follow us, subscribe, support the podcast. I'm out here in these streets, y'all.
Well, there you have it, folks. Dr. Teal, it was a pleasure. And I look forward to having you again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Anytime. Take care.
You too. Well, friends, we are out of time for today, but you know I'm never out of solutions. First, I want to remind you to subscribe so that you can stay locked into the latest and greatest of Paging Dr. Teal. Then I want you to share this episode with at least one person and or on your social media page. Both are much appreciated. And after you've done that, please take just 1 minute out of your day and leave a review of the podcast. Whether you listen on Apple, Spotify, whatever the case may be, leave us a review. Reviews are important because they allow us to stand out a bit more and serve as a reference of sorts to new listeners. Sharing is caring, and knowledge is power. So please do both. Thank you in advance. Also, follow us on Facebook, Instagram at Paging Dr. Teal. Visit us on the web at www.pagingdrteal.com. Working on the website. It's being revamped. New content coming for you guys. I'm actually about to start offering a life coach and wellness consultation sessions. Whew. Definitely might want to check that out. Life-changing type stuff. One-on-one with Doc. You get to lay on the couch, the virtual couch, yourself with me. It sounds fun, right? More information to follow, but you've gotta check us out on www.pagingdrteal.com for more information about your wellness consultation sessions with the good doc. And so since I'm like your psychologist bestie, if you have a question or situation you want to get some guidance on, send them to pagingdrteal@gmail.com. I'm here for you, so I want to hear from you. In parting, remember, friends, your health is your wealth, so take care of yourself. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready, and don't lighten up, tighten up. Later.